Welcome back to the MUSB Dugout, everyone. I am Scott Hall, and today I am joined by one of the very first members of the Herd softball program, Carrie Hinkle. Carrie came in with the very first freshman class, playing from 1994 to 97, and was named All-Southern Conference 4 times. Carrie, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Scott.
Oh, definitely. I love having you all on, especially the players from before I got here and also the ones who were here when the program first started up, because this is great for me to be able to hear the stories of how things really got rolling with this program, because obviously once I got involved with it, things had already been going on for a little while there. But before we get going, let everyone know what you've been up to since your playing days.
Well, as you know, I graduated in 1997 and I got a degree in finance and business law. So after I graduated, I started working for a bank, and then they transferred everything to Parkersburg. So I transferred to a law firm and started that. But at the same time, I was taking night classes because I knew probably about my junior year of college that I wanted to go into education and switch my major from business. But because of the NCAA rules, I couldn't do that. So stuck with business, and but luckily for me that I was lucky enough to take some summer classes. So my senior year, I only needed a few more business classes. So I picked up a lot of my education classes my senior year at Marshall. So I took some night classes and got my education degree. And then I taught for a year, and I coached softball for a year with my former high school coach, which was a lot of fun. And then I got offered a job with the federal government, and I took that, and I've been working for them now for 20 years. So, and in the meantime, while all that was going on, I had 3 amazing girls, Bailey, who's 18, Brooklyn, 15, and Bentley, who is 13. My boyfriend, Michael Hill, he coaches baseball. So currently we're supporting him and going and watching him play. And occasionally at the home games, I'm asked to announce. So that's very interesting.
Okay.
But it's fun. So yeah, the girls play sports and they're involved in a lot. So I just work and then, surround myself supporting the girls and Michael and his coaching. So that's what I'm doing.
Now, where is he coaching?
He coaches at Fairland.
Fairland?
And he's a teacher at Fairland as well.
Okay. All right. It's funny that you talk about, not being able to change your major because the way the NCAA, can have things set up, because there was one year we had a player transfer to Marshall from Alderson Broadus, and she was deemed academically ineligible because of, I guess, the way her classes didn't line up coming from AB to Marshall. And they said, well, if you change your major, then you can stay eligible. And she said, well, I'm not going to change my major. So we had a player on our team who was academically ineligible with a 3.8 GPA, as if that makes sense. I mean, she has almost a 4.0, and she's told, academically you can't play. It's
right. It's crazy, but I mean, I get it. In some circumstances, it's necessary, I guess, just to make sure that people are focusing on the academic portion of it. But at the same token, those people who are there for the academics and just want to switch their major, because at 18, that's hard to decide exactly what you want to do for the rest of your life. So, that's what it got me there, the 25, 50, 75% rule or whatever.
Yeah.
It was something like that.
Oh yeah, the percentage towards your degree by year by year.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and step back then. So when did you start playing softball?
I was young, and I actually picked up a baseball first. So I played baseball, and it was up near Zanesville, Ohio, that area. That's where I'm originally from. We didn't move down here until the 6th grade. But so I started playing baseball first because softball wasn't real popular or known of for the girls in that area at the time. So I played baseball, and I was actually selected for the all-star team, for the boys team. However, because I was a girl, the other coaches didn't really, or I should say the other dads didn't really want me. To my knowledge, this is what, I was told. I don't really know all of it, but, and my dad was upset about that. So he went and talked to the other coaches and, said if she earned it, she deserves to play, whether she's a girl or on a boys team or whatever. And so I did eventually get on the all-star team and played there. And then I transferred over to slow pitch softball. Because again, fast pitch just wasn't a thing in that area at the time. And then when I moved down here, sports for girls were more known, I guess. I moved down here in the 6th grade, and that's the first time I picked up a basketball and started playing fast pitch softball. So 6th grade fast pitch.
Okay. And now, reading your bio, in high school, you played 3 sports: volleyball, basketball, and softball. Busy in all 3. When did you kind of start thinking about trying to go on to college and playing? And was it always softball, or were the other 2 ever an option for you?
I think basketball was my front runner, to be honest. I was getting more noticed for basketball than I was softball. And, like Christy was talking about, we made the VHSs, we mailed them out to different colleges. And I had this really nice guy who was a parent, a girl that was a teammate of mine. And he helped me do all that. He videoed the games. He actually went through into the highlights and all that good stuff. And we were able to send that out. But yeah, I would say basketball was the front runner. I had very small offers with volleyball, being 5'4", 5'5". Volleyball probably wasn't my strength. Well, you could say that for basketball too, I guess, but a point guard, you don't have to be all that tall, I guess. So basketball was my front runner, but then, my high school coach was very encouraging and, telling me that I needed to consider that. And then Coach Burnt came over and watched one of my games. And then I got, some offers with softball as well. So then I had to start to think, which one do I want to do for 4 years after I graduate? And then, things came into factor, like the facilities, where I'd be playing, the time of year I'd be playing, where I was getting the most offers, and how much money is there on the table. And then I just started thinking about what's harder on my body. And at the time, I thought basketball was going to be harder on my body. So I chose to sort of go towards softball for a couple reasons. Like Coach was saying, softball's outside. It's in the spring for the most part. I mean, we're a little bit in the winter at the beginning, but for the most part, it's in the spring. So, I just looked at my offers, looked at my opportunities, and I decided to go with softball. So just led me there.
Well, and of course, lucky enough for you, once you did come to Marshall, you got to spend all your 4 years in the Southern Conference. So you didn't get that into the MAC, having to go to some of those schools.
in shorts, mind you.
Yeah, exactly. All those old uniforms, it was all shorts, and you better have the long socks and the sliders on
right.
And yep. But now, but still within high school, I mean, you won the Ohio Valley Conference title in all 3 sports. I mean, that had to feel pretty impressive to be able to do that.
Yeah, when you look back and you think about, the accomplishments, winning the OVC and all that, those titles are awesome. But when you look back and think about all those things, it's really the memories that you make with your teammates, the bus rides, the, going to and from the games and just listening to your music and singing and all that. So the wins are nice. They really are, because nobody likes to lose, especially if you're competitive. But when you think back of all that stuff, it's not the basket scored or, the hit, the RBI. It's more of the memories with your teammates that sort of stick with you.
Now, okay, you've already talked about how you were kind of getting recruited coming out of Fairland. Now, so what was Coach Burnt's recruiting sales pitch to you to get you to come to a brand new program? They haven't even played a season yet. You're going to be on the first team. So what was that like?
To be honest, she wasn't really aggressively recruiting me. And I can't tell you the reasons for that, but she did come to a game and she did talk to me and she did tell me the opportunities that were there. But at the time, she really didn't know how much money she would have, to be able to offer. So even though all those things sounded great about the opportunities being right across the river from home, that sounded really good. But I think I don't know everybody else's circumstances, because we really didn't talk about that because it was just so unknown, going in and not sure what was happening. You had to fight for your position. And, I can remember it was more like a tryout thing that, and Coach would tell us, I can't guarantee you money. I don't know how much I'm going to have. I don't know where it's going to go. But I did decide to go to Marshall, because I did have some opportunities at OU, but I decided to go to Marshall and stick it out and went through those those tryouts. It's like nothing I've ever been through in my life. They were hard, and, you know, it was tough. And then you're looking around because you really don't have any camaraderie at that point to look to see who's, you know, because everybody's, you know, bidding for a spot. So, you know, as far as for recruiting, it was just more like, here's the opportunities. Here's what we have. I can't guarantee you, you know, anything, but you will get a play, and you will. So you went there. And then I think, you know, about a couple months afterwards, she got the financial stuff situated, if I recall that correctly. She got the financial stuff situated because I was in a position that, you know, I wasn't getting any financial aid. My parents were right at that line. But yet my parents also couldn't afford to sit there and say, here's, you know, whatever it was back then, $4,000-5,000, here you go, go to school. So, you know, that's my main goal was, you know, I wanted money to be able to play and to be able to get my school paid for. So luckily that did work out for me. And, you know, she did give me enough money to cover that. And then the next year, you know, it was a little bit more. And then, you know, everything was covered with a little bit of I think it was tuition and room and board or something like that. I can't remember what it was titled, but I know that I would see, I think, Coach Gail or Coach Gail's wife when I would go in there and pick up my checks. So.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, you know, you've already talked about that first fall a little bit, feeling like everything was a tryout, but, you know, I mean, really, how was it, you know, trying to mix in with everybody? Because there were some people who were semi-local, but also, too, you had players coming in from the West Coast, you know, from California and all that. So here you've got a whole different mix of people that you're not used to, obviously, and you're trying to make a team out of it.
Right. Yeah. You know, that freshman year, I can just remember, and I think everybody who came in that year, now the older girls like Laura, also known as Belle to me, so I might refer to her as Belle from here on out. You know, she had already had a year under her belt. So, you know, even though I didn't know her that well at the time, we had just met, she sort of took me under her wing and helped me out tremendously to adjust because, you know, coming from high school, being the athlete who was recruited in more than one sport, and, you know, it sort of seemed like it came easy for that level. But when you're going to the next level, it's a whole different ball game. So the transition of just going there and coach telling me, you know, that I need to correct this in my hitting, that, you know, I need to, you know, on an inside, on throwing from the infield, it's different than throwing from the outfield. And, you know, just different things that maybe just because your natural ability didn't get picked up in high school, what you needed to correct to make it at the collegiate level was picked up on by coach. And she made sure that you were going to be in the best position to be successful at that level. And it wasn't always what you wanted to hear.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same token, it, you know, at the time it didn't feel good. So it messed sort of with your mental game. And then on top of that, trying to transition to the academic world in college, because back then they didn't have CCP classes and different things like that to give you a little taste of what college was like. Mm-hmm. And that was really difficult to go in and try to maintain the same GPA and expectations, I guess, for yourself as a freshman that you did in high school, because the college academics was so much different. You had so much freedom, and the professors didn't really, I mean, they cared, but it was your responsibility. They weren't going to sit there and say, hey, you don't have this assignment turned in. So it's just different. So there was a lot of adjustment coming from high school to college. And, you know, luckily in that environment of still like sort of trying to get your position and trying to feel like you fit there, the girls that were recruited and the girls that came in were so easy to get along with and approachable. Missy Frost, Tracy Mann, Belle, you know, those are just a few that just, we really clicked instantly. And it was sort of, it made it a little easier, that transition and that feeling of sort of desperation to get your spot.
Well, and then obviously too, I mean, you're close to home, but you would still like to, like you said, really click with your teammates and make it feel like, yeah, even though home is right there, I still have a good spot here. I have, you know, I'm around people that I care about, that they care about me. We're playing together and all that. So, I mean, that definitely helps. That's always good when you can come in as a freshman and still find, you know, something right away, especially on a brand new team.
Right, exactly. And, and we did have West Coast girls too, but Brandy Northrup. And I remember, thinking how homesick that, they must be, in that situation. And we would always try to have like family dinners, and we'd invite them out for soup and different things like that to make them feel at home as possible. Because, that's a huge trip, from California to Huntington, West Virginia.
Yeah, a couple thousand miles and a little culture shock, so
You're right.
Sure, it's very, very different. But so now talk about what you kind of remember from that first season from 1994, where, everybody's just really trying to feel each other out and get yourself into the motion of now playing Division I softball. I mean, you did have obviously a couple players who had the experience of that, Jeannie Noble at Morehead State and Heather Michaelis at Ohio State. But other than that, everybody else was pretty much brand new to it at the college level.
Scott, I don't know if I'm wrong or not in my years, but I may be. But I don't think Jeannie and Heather were there the first. Jeannie may have been, but I don't think Heather was.
And they both were. Yeah.
They were.
Yes.
My freshman year, Heather was there.
Yes.
Okay, well then I'll just take your word for it. I don't remember them being there my freshman year, but that may have been the nerves and everything else that was going along with that. But I can just remember that we did a lot of team building activities. I think it was my freshman year, but I may be wrong again. We did the ropes course up in Columbus. And that was terrifying in itself. You were really high. You had to count on each other to get each other across different, courses, and it was fun. But you were definitely trembling when you were up in the air, counting on everybody to get you through. And so like I said, we had several different personalities, but there were really no conflicts. I mean, we were like a family. Of course, there were disagreements. There were things that, we liked and didn't like about things. But for the most part, there was really no drama that I can recall. And that made it nice. And that, because I think everything, was so brand new and we didn't know what we were doing. And our focus was always on, conditioning, classes, practice. And then after that, with it being brand new, we were painting locker rooms, putting up nets, that kind of stuff that didn't have the funds for. So the players and coaches were doing that and put a lot of those extra hours into that to make sure that we had, the facility that we needed.
That was something Coach talked about, painting the dugouts and obviously trying to tell the construction people, no, you don't put the foul pole inside the field. That goes outside the field. It's a safety hazard. You don't want your outfielders obviously crashing into this hard pole, while they're going after a ball. And then I think she said too, the on deck circle, they put it outside on the basketball courts, not in on the field. And it's like, my goodness, who's thinking about this?
Right.
But,
there was no oversight, I don't think.
Yeah.
Except for Coach.
Yeah, exactly. What good thing she was there, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. But you get through that first season, a 17-21 record is I would think still impressive for a brand new program, because you see a lot of times, brand new team, they might win maybe 6 to 8 games, something like that. But you all were still pretty close to 500. So obviously you've got the talent. It's in place there. And, what did it mean to you get to the end of your freshman year and you're named all conference?
I was thrilled. But of course it was nothing expected. And, I appreciated the acknowledgement of that. But of course, like I said, it was not expected. And I was honored to get that honor. So, and I appreciated it. I don't know if Coach nominated me. I don't know how that worked back then. But I did appreciate them acknowledging my efforts and, the contribution that I gave to the team.
Well, I do know how it goes now. Not quite sure, obviously, what it was back then. But the SID and the coach would talk together about who do they want to nominate. And then it's voted on by the coaches, and the rest of the conference.
Okay.
So, just because you get nominated, obviously, then doesn't mean that you make the team. So if it was the same way back then, obviously the other coaches respected you enough, with your ability there to put you on the all-conference team. But so now, okay, your sophomore year, things start to be kind of getting together a little bit more. And what do you remember about your sophomore year? I mean, obviously more games played before getting to the conference tournament.
What I remember about my sophomore year is that, number one is that we had our field. That was our first year having our field between the Henderson Center and the Twin Towers, which was an amazing location for a field. We had people who would open up the windows, and, I can remember that. And, they would either get the umpire a hard time or the other visiting team, and of course cheer us on. And then, you'd have your stragglers walking through, just because they left practice, whether it be track team, football players, or coming from class. And they would stop. So I felt like that we got more support, and people knew of us our sophomore year a little bit more, of course, being our second year. Also we won the championship. So that was really exciting. And we weren't expected to win. We were, I think, seated fourth. And it was at Furman, because I loved playing at Furman. That was my all-time favorite field. The grass was so nice. So, those things about my sophomore year. And I also remember that, we still had to sort of prove ourselves to people, even though we won the championship. When we came back home, we were excited. We were, celebrating, and, we were super excited about getting our championship rings. That was a huge deal. So, and I could just remember, and I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but I just remember that, we didn't know for sure if we were going to get the rings or not, because they didn't have the funding for it. So, that was a disappointment when we came back. And luckily that Ryan Turner, he was the student body president, I believe. Okay. If I'm right, I think that, but I know he was a part of the student body, and he actually heard of that, and so he, volunteered to give money to our program to be able to help with the purchasing of our rings. And now today, Ryan Turner is the husband of Belle. So and then Matt and Stephanie are married as well, and Matt was our manager. So. But yeah, our sophomore year, there was a lot of things that were memorable, and I'd say that the highlight was, of course, winning the championship.
Well, and especially the way you all did it too. I mean, you roll through Chattanooga 4-0, and Chattanooga always seemed to be a team that kind of had your all's number during the regular season as well. So, I mean, that's got to be pretty good to get that game on them in the first round. Then you beat Georgia Southern 5-3, and then you just kind of roll right over Furman 7-1. And at their place. I mean, I'm sure it helps out a lot too to, not just beat them, but beat them pretty soundly at their own home stadium. When they're hosting, thinking, hey, this will be an easy championship. We're at home. This will be great. And instead, you all walk away with it. Yeah,
we snuck up on them for sure.
Oh, yeah.
They had the home field advantage. But, I think that, just everything came together that weekend, and we were playing very well together. And a lot of hits that don't normally – I hate to keep saying if I recall correctly, but this was a while ago. Yeah. I think that's when Missy got a home run, and that wasn't typical. I mean, she was a hitter, but that so she got a home run that game, I believe, in that tournament, and it was an exciting feeling, and it was good, and it was shocking too. Like, there was just so many emotions that went into that weekend, and it was good to come home with a win.
Well, now speaking of going home. I've heard the story of the broken down van that Coach Burns said, nope, forget it, leave it, we're going home to celebrate. Now, she did say, though, that there weren't as many of you around because some players were able to kind of go home with their parents. So now, were you a part of that, the broken down van, or were you one that was able to kind of sneak away with your family?
I was not one that was able to sneak away with my family. So, yeah, I can remember Missy and I just sitting outside on the buckets because, you have the equipment and, you're trying to take that with you and trying to figure out how we're going to pack everything in there. So, but we, that's not the only adventure story in the vans. We had plenty. I can remember coming home from, I believe, Columbus or somewhere in that area. And Hanging Rock in Ohio is a speed trap. You can go 1 mile per hour over and you're going to get pulled over. And we saw the blue lights quick. So, there were plenty of good van stories. That's for sure. Because we were in that van a lot.
Well, and that was the thing that, when I talked to Coach, that she said was that you all in the beginning, you didn't have the bus. So it was everybody in the vans. Jeannie Noble talked about how she had to occasionally drive one of the vans, which just cracks me up. I love that. I mean, in my time, we always had the buses, but we would get vans whenever we flew somewhere. So,
Right.
into a place, then we get the vans, and a lot of times I got to drive, and I love driving, but
I do too.
I drove the equipment van, of course. So I'm the one who's got to shovel all this stuff in there, all the equipment, all the suitcases and everything. I got to be pretty good at packing vans for that particular reason. But sometimes when you got to drive in some of those cities, it's just insane. So I mean, I could imagine you all having to do this every trip. Not just the occasional one here. It's every trip you all are in the vans. I mean,
I think when I played, we only flew once, and other than that, it was in the vans. And we went to Florida. Yeah, but memories were made. We played spades. That was the big game. Amy, which her nickname's Desi, so I'll probably refer to her as that. She and I were always partners at spades. Everybody wanted to take us down. They were unsuccessful. No, I'm just kidding. But we did have fun. We had fun, and we played, games. We were studying, playing games, or it was so late we were exhausted, and we just tried to find a way to get ourselves comfortable and sleep. So, but yeah, we were on the van. And then if you think about it, our freshman year, you told me our record, I think maybe only 7 to 10 games were at home because we didn't have a field. So, we got very familiar with the vans.
Yeah. There's actually been a few times where I've offered, like, look, if you don't want to deal with equipment on a plane, just pack me in a van. I swear I'll drive it there. I have no problem. Just give me some music. I'll put the window down, sing my heart out, and I'll be good. I don't care how far I have to drive. But no, we still end up having to get on the planes. But so now, one other thing, because obviously you talked about, you played volleyball, you played basketball, you played softball. So obviously a multi-sport athlete. Now, Coach Byrne talked about, your versatility and how great it was to have you, and the fact that, if she needed you at a certain position, that you basically said, okay, yes, put me there, I'll do it. So how many positions did you play at Marshall?
I was recruited. I think that I was looked at mostly for center field because that's where I played my senior year of high school, although I also played shortstop some in high school as well. So I was recruited mainly for center field, and that's where I thought that I was going to, have my position my freshman year, but it just worked out that she needed a shortstop. So, I played shortstop my freshman year mainly. And then I also played a little bit of first base. We needed me. I don't recall why, but we needed me there for some reason. And then also I believe UNC, she called me up to catch. So I caught as well. So I think it's been catcher first. It just goes sort of a zigzag right up the middle there. Catcher first, short, and then center.
And did you like being just put wherever? It didn't matter. Did you like being all the different positions?
I loved it. I didn't care as long as I was playing and whatever the team needed at the time. I think Coach knew that. So whatever the team needed at the time, I didn't mind at all. I try my best. I don't know that I was always the best at that position, but I would definitely give it my all.
Now, was there one position that you liked particularly more than the rest of them? Or did you just really enjoy them all?
They were all different. They were also different. I think the similarities of short and center, at least I felt that way. I felt more comfortable at short and center. But I loved catching that one game. There was something about that. And I think that I maybe threw a girl out at second, and that was just the best feeling. I just remember that, and just being sort of in charge and calling the game and different things like that, even if it was coming from Coach, I don't know, there was a different feeling about being behind the plate.
All right. So runner caught stealing added in with everything else that you've done.
I hope I'm not making that up. And Coach, if I am, just go ahead and correct me. But I do remember that feeling of how good that felt and like that rush. It was.
Well, the unfortunate thing with some of the stats that I've been able to find, it doesn't have a lot of those, which bothers me because I would like to see obviously what the old catchers did in those years. And so if I ever get to find them, maybe I will see, that one column caught stealing by your name. There might be a 1 right there,
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But, our catchers were really good, and Heather and Shannon Strozier, they were really good. So I don't know even the situation. I can't recall why I needed to be behind the plate that game, but I did. So, but yeah, the catchers that we had, they were really good, and they got a lot of games and innings in.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know how their knees are now, but they got a lot of innings in.
Always got to worry about those knees with catchers. But so now, what was the feeling and the mentality of you and the team going into your junior year? You're coming off of winning the Southern Conference tournament in just your second season.
Right.
And obviously the team wasn't expected to do it, things like that. But kind of what was the feeling going into then your third year?
We got some transfers in, we got new recruits in, and then we still had some of the players that came, because some of the players didn't come back, and some of them did. And then others, we got, like I said, the transfers and the recruits. And that year specifically, I can remember, we got a transfer in Amy Anderson, which that was my spades partner. She played third base. So, we picked up the spots that we needed to pick up. And I think that we went into it thinking that, with us winning that conference, that anything was possible. And, I think our goal at that point was to get a bid and to try to, just keep improving. And, and coach continued to give us a challenging schedule. I don't know how much her hands were in that, but I know that she would want that at the time. So, we were excited, and we thought that, with us winning the conference, that, anything was possible and that we can go in there and do it. And the girls that were returning were more comfortable, academic wise, were sort of getting their groove with that. And then also, understanding what was going to take place in fall ball and the conditioning and the 6 a.m. runs and, then weightlifting and just being able to sort of manage all that stuff that you had to manage between everything. I think that you were just more comfortable and more confident in what you were doing. So we were excited for that year.
So did this kind of help validate maybe your reasons then for going to Marshall? In here it is, just your third year and just the third year of the program. You all are already looking to try and get to the NCAA. I mean, it's not, okay, maybe we can get a few more wins. Maybe we can do better in the tournament. You won the tournament the year before, and you're seeing the wins and you're seeing the talent. I mean, that had to feel pretty special too.
Yeah, it did feel very special, and to be honest with you, until we were able to accomplish those things, that was sort of out of reach in my mind, just that kind of thing, because I think it was my freshman year. I was fortunate enough to be selected to participate in the Yes Clinic and go out and watch the World Series. So I got a little bit of a taste of what that was like, and just the excitement and the competitiveness of it all. And it was just really neat to be able to participate in that and witness that with my own eyes, because I had never been out there and done anything like that, or to witness the World Series and the Hall of Fame and different things like that. So I was very fortunate to do that. So then once we won that conference, it sort of opened my eyes, like maybe this is a possibility. And so going into the junior year and senior year, that was always our hope, to be able to do that.
How do you like, because obviously you got to see, Hall of Fame Stadium back then. So how do you like the fact of how much it's grown? I mean, to really also show the popularity of the sport and how much it's grown, that they keep saying, hey, we've got to add more seats to this place.
It's amazing. And it's so good. Having 3 daughters, you love to see that, just people embracing that and loving the sport and wanting to come watch the girls play. I love it. I love every part of it. And I think it just shows how far this sport has grown. When I played, like, you talk about playing every sport. I played every sport, but, I didn't have the travel ball options. And I don't know that I would have, because I loved my seasons and I love my sports. But now even, coach talking about going out west to recruit. Well, they played all year long, even then. But around here, you didn't hear of a travel ball team. But now, you could flip a quarter in any county and you're going to find about 3 or 4 travel ball teams, So it's great to see how much the sport has progressed and how so many fans are just wanting to go watch it, because it's a great game to watch. It's fun.
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously I love it, or else I wouldn't have been around it all this time.
Well, you do great. You do great at what you do, so we appreciate it.
Well, thank you. If I had known I was going to be around the team this long, I would have done a lot better job of keeping a lot of the old videos from when I first started, because I would love to be able to have those video clips to share. But so now in your junior year, You set a team record with 69 hits, lasted till 2003, and is in fact still ninth all-time in Marshall history. So that number's still up there. You know, the team rolls out 38 wins, but just couldn't find that, let me try that again, take two. Couldn't quite find that magic there in the conference tournament this time. So, yeah, talk about that season a little bit.
You know, I don't specifically remember the season other than, you know, of course, we didn't win other than my sophomore year as far as the Southern Conference goes. I know that we had a more difficult season as far as our schedule was concerned that year. If I recall correctly, I think that's when we went down to Florida State. And I think we played UCLA, you know, and just different teams like that, you know, wasn't even on our radar being a third year, fourth year. I'm pretty sure it was my junior year. You know, things like that. So we had a more difficult season, and you know, that usually prepares you for the conference. So, you know, I think that it was a disappointment that we didn't, you know, repeat, I guess you would say. But at the same token, I think that we were still proud of the accomplishments that the team as a whole made. So, you know, we were on to the next year. So
now, well, how was that senior year for you? I mean, you know, this is pretty much going to be it for you. You have won a title, but obviously you'd like to be able to get another one. Just kind of talk about that last year.
You know, the last year, there was mixed emotions going into it, you know, because you're more confident. You sort of know who you are a little bit better than you did when you were going in as fresh as 17, 18 years old. So, you know, your senior year going into it, there's like I said, all kinds of emotions, and you want to do the best, and you want to see the program succeed, and you want to win any championship and possibly get a bid if possible, you know, to sort of go out with a bang. But it didn't happen. And that's okay, but because what happened during that 4 years and the things that I've accomplished in that 4 years and the friends that I made and my teammates that has lasted a lifetime, you know, so I'll never, ever be able to get those times back with them. And so thinking back now, I miss that. And I miss the communication, the camaraderie that I have with the team. But as far as going in for goals and what you expected, of course, we wanted to win, and we wanted a bid, but we didn't do it. We came up short.
Well, you still at least have one title, you know, during your lifetime there. So, but now, what was it like to play for Coach Burnt?
You know, Coach Burnt was very demanding, you know, and she had high expectations for us, which, you know, that's understandable. We're getting paid to do a job. And, you know, she would communicate those expectations with us, and she would let you know when you weren't meeting those. And, you know, she was tough as far as conditioning is concerned. I was in the best shape of my life those 4 years, between running the track, running the cemetery, running the park. Matter of fact, our junior year, I believe it was Amy's first year there. I think in our thread that we talk about, because after these interviews, you know, it sort of, you know, it sparks up some conversation. We sort of talked about that we were wondering where Amy was, and we couldn't find her, and she actually got lost running to Ritter Park and back. Now, mind you, she's from California, and that was her first year in West Virginia. So, yeah. So, you know, we would do that conditioning. We do racquetball. We would do swimming. The swimming, whew, I probably need to start doing that again. But yeah, she was tough as far as conditioning and preparing us for the season. But we had good times too. You know, it was like a family. She would have parties at her house as far as like Halloween, or just, you know, a dinner at her house, and we'd come over and do that kind of stuff. And then we also did that with Laura's parents. You know, we tried to get together as much as possible, and she encouraged that. So, you know, she was tough, wanted the best for us, and would communicate that with us, and made sure that, you know, we understood what she needed from us.
Now, what are some of your best memories from your playing days, either on or off the field? I know you kind of already talked about how most of the things you remember really are off the field, but what are some of your best memories? You know,
the memories that I have is, you know, I have both on and off the field, but the most that I take with me, it's not so much about, you know, the hits. So listening to you sort of rattle off those numbers, you know, I'm like, oh, okay. Because those things don't really stick out to me. But the things that I remember the most are just the friendships that I made over the years, the Halloween parties, the recruits coming in and preparing for that. And then we would do, like I said, the ropes course, and then we'd stay at Tracy's parents' house. And I think some have stayed at Missy's house, if I recall correctly, because I think they were pretty close in location. And then we went to the beach as a team, and we did that. We rode, I think it was Coach's jet skis, I believe. So we did things like that. But as far as on the field, you know, it's mostly just prepping for the game. Not so much the wins or losses, but just being happy for others, and, you know, the cheers that we would do, or the lack of the cheers. And then, you know, the other players would get upset because of the lack of cheers. So then we'd have to start cheer, you know, just those kinds of things. That's, you know, when you think back of it, it's comical, and, you know, it's good time. So I enjoyed all 4 years.
Well, what was it like being somebody to have to kind of take care of the recruits when they would come into town?
You know, it was fun. You know, we would have certain places that we would take them. And then, you know, myself and Stephanie had an apartment together my sophomore year. And then Christy and Amy generally roomed together. And Laura and Hallie generally room together. So, you know, we had those different places and Missy and Tracy would normally room together. So we had those different places that we would go to a person's apartment, and we'd take them there, and then we'd show them around Huntington, which back then it was a lot different than it is now. So I'll just leave it at that. Yeah. So having the recruits, it was neat, and, you know, and trying to tell them why they should come to Marshall, because we were all having great experiences there. So it was fun, and I would take them around in my 1981 silver Oldsmobile. So I don't know how much they thought of that, but
Well, it's wheels, you know. I mean,
it's wheels. That's for
around. So that's pretty good. I like that. But do you have any crazy stories? I mean, obviously appropriate ones that still make you smile and laugh. I mean, obviously you've talked about, you know, how travel adventures, you know, things breaking down here, you get stuck here, you know, whatever it is. But are there any stories that you look back at and they still just bring a smile to your face?
You know, I think we were playing in Florida. I just remember that we didn't have such a great game that day. And I can remember Coach just finding a field in the middle of nowhere and pulling off, and we got some practice time in. So I can remember that. I can remember stopping at I think it's Ryan's. Is that the chain that's down in the southern part?
It sounds familiar, yeah.
Yeah, I can remember we ate there often. I don't know why that sticks out, but it does.
That could be good or bad.
Good or bad. And then I can just remember that, like I said, the van trips is, you know, playing spades with Amy, and then everybody challenging us. And we may or may not have had signals. I don't know, but
okay.
So, yeah, the spades games, I can remember that. And then also, you know, Jeannie was getting married during that time. I think it was maybe her senior year. And I can remember the bachelorette party for her at Laura's parents' house. So that was a nice time. But I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of specifics because it was a good time, and we had plenty of memories, and you doing all these interviews and talking to girls that played during that time is a lot of fun to watch, and it just brings up those memories and allows us that opportunity to get back together and talk about it and have a good time with it.
Well, I'm glad, and I have Jeannie Noble coming up too. I've already talked to her, but obviously need to get to that one to edit. But, you know, so, well, in obviously reconnecting with your teammates and everything, you know, what does it mean to you to be one of the building blocks of the success of this program? Because you also kind of alluded to earlier in that, you know, back then the travel teams didn't exist. You know, now like you said, you could just toss a coin somewhere and here's 3 or 4 of them that you can go on. But a lot of that, especially here in this state in West Virginia, can really be attributed to Marshall. They're the only D1 program in the state. You all got that started. I mean, what does that mean to you as an alum, and being able to see, one, the success of this program, but two, also the success of really the game building around here?
Right. It's changed a lot, that's for sure. And, you know, as far as being part of the first members of the team back in 94 to 97, I think that a lot of heart dedication and focus went into it, from coach all the way, all the teammates, all of us, we dedicated that time. And I think that all of us laid that foundation that was pretty solid for the next people to come along and just pick that right back up and build off of it. But just to see the progress where the sport has, from that time till now, it's amazing. I mean, I take my girls over, and Belle and I try to meet up once, every year to go to a game together and take our daughters. But just to see the amount of people in the stands, the amount of people that's filling the parking lot in the back, it's nice to see. And it's great to be a part of it. And I do agree that I think that Marshall softball has a lot to do with the growth of the game in this area. And now we're able to compete with the Californias and the Alabamas and the Georgias and things of that nature. As far as recruiting, we've had a lot of good athletes come out of this area.
Well, exactly. You're able to now see a whole lot of successful players. I mean, obviously you were local, being from right across the river, and to then have players continue who are from around this area and have all the success that they've had, like recently with Ashley Gu and Andi Williamson being able to help win that championship there. Morgan Zirkle, the things that she's done. I mean, you really are kind of a part of that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I don't consider how much, but I do appreciate that.
4-time all conference. I mean, come on. But okay, so obviously you've been to the new field and you've seen the crowds that come there, and that's one too that I always like talking to a lot of the newcomers when they're just amazed at how many people show up to even a fall ball game. Obviously not this year because of COVID.
Right.
Can't have anybody come out, but they're just amazed. They go, gosh, this game doesn't even count. We're not even going to turn the scoreboard on. None of this, but there's a couple hundred people here ready to watch this. So, I mean, but I also think back too to what you said with the old field, because I do remember the old field. Now, by the time I got to Marshall, they couldn't open the windows in Towers anymore. And I could just imagine, like, say, an outfielder for the other team or something, hearing this voice from way up above somewhere going,
yeah.
It's like, who is saying that to me? I was like, where is this voice coming from that is just writing everything I'm doing? I mean, that had to be pretty spectacular to be able to have something like that.
It was. And occasionally it wasn't only a voice. Sometimes it was toilet paper. Sometimes it was crazy, but it was a good crazy. I mean, it was a healthy, competitive environment. It was really nice. I enjoyed the location of the field. It was very, very good.
So definitely some of the reasons as to why they can now no longer open the windows over there. Yes. Oh, that's pretty good. But, when you finished your career, you're the career leader in hits, runs, scored, doubles, stolen bases, and some of those marks are still up there, and some of them lasted for years as well before they were broken. You were also voted all conference 4 times. What are you most proud of from your playing career?
From my playing career, I think I'm most proud of the experiences that I had. It's not so much about the statistics or the awards that I received myself, because of course I couldn't have done that without the push of my teammates and my coaches. So, I think that what I'm most proud of is just the experience as far as on the field, being able to travel, to be able to play at that level, at those different teams that I was able to. I swore when I was traveling all the time to North Carolina, that was going to be my home. I fell in love with North Carolina. So I think it's just the experiences and the things, the ability to be able to see that southern part. I don't know that I would have went to a lot of those places. So that's what I'm most proud about, is being able to stick it out for 4 years at the collegiate level and, being able to just sort of soak up all those experiences that I had the opportunity to do.
So then what are you most proud of just as a whole from your time as a student athlete?
Again, I think just making it through those 4 years, and I was lucky enough to complete 4 years and have a little bit of my second degree. So I got my finance and business law degree along with probably my first year of education under my belt in 4 years, debt free. So, I don't think too many people can say that, and that, couldn't have been possible without that opportunity to play softball. So.
Well, I definitely couldn't say I finished debt free, unfortunately. But then again, I didn't play ball, so I didn't have that opportunity either. I got in at the radio station, no scholarships there. You're just volunteering your time, all
Yeah,
that sort of stuff.
a
But
lot of time too, I'm sure.
it was. But it's worth it with some of the things I've been able to keep doing. So now
Right.
going back to what you did on the field again. Now I'm not sure why you're not in the Hall of Fame yet, but what would it mean to you to get that phone call from the athletic director saying that you will be inducted into the Hall of Fame?
I'd be thrilled, of course, and I'd be appreciative that someone is acknowledging, the accomplishments that I did, um, achieve during those 4 years. I'm not expecting it, but if it did happen, I would be thrilled and honored to be a part of, that elite, the elite athletes that, are already inducted into the Hall of Fame. So,
Uh, One more question, just looking back to with as far as being an alum with the softball program, what has it meant to you to be able to see the work that this program puts into trying to connect all of its alum? Not just say, oh, we got to make sure that we pay attention to the championship team from 2013 or the team that got ranked in 2017, but wanting to get all of you together, the one that won the tournament in 95, everybody in between, beginning, middle, and just trying to connect everybody together.
Coach Shonda did an amazing job as far as trying to bring everybody together, and that's from 1994 all the way through. She and I believe the Williams sisters had a lot to do with that, and if anybody else had a part in that, I'm sorry that I'm not mentioning you, but I do appreciate it because, as you go through life, your priorities change, and especially when you have children and you sort of get consumed with what they're doing and supporting them and what they want to do. So, one weekend a year, I know that that's reserved for me time with Belle. And I'm always hopeful that the other teammates from that time period will come because it's generally usually Belle and I only there from our time period.
Yeah.
As far as those 4 years. So but I understand they live, thousands of miles away. So, and I know it's difficult, but I always hope that, sometime that they'll be able to get back and I'll get together again. But Belle and I we reserve that weekend. We text each other as soon as we get the information from the Williams or
Mm-hmm.
Coach Shonda. And we always say, okay, we're meeting here, we're good. And then, there's a few players, Chrissy or Amy, sometimes Stephanie, we'll text them or Missy Frost and let them know, we miss them and we wish they were there. And so, it's really nice to have that camaraderie. And even with the newer players and the ones that came there right after us, it's just nice to see them because a lot of them, they were on those recruiting trips with us. And, they remember us as the people, why they're there or that helped them encourage them to go there. So, no, the alumni program is, really, really nice. And again, it just gives us that opportunity to stop and think and reminisce and sort of catch up and what everybody's doing now. And it's nice.
Well, that was one thing when I talked to Amanda when she said how they tried to get as many to come back as they could when the new field opened up in the 2008 season. And she said she and Shonda kind of got together and said, you know what, other than obviously the games that weekend because we got absolutely embarrassed by Houston, but
we won't talk about that.
Yeah, but she and Shonda got together and they said, this was absolutely wonderful to have this. And so they kind of thought, what if we could make this an every year thing? And so Amanda said, so we tried to do it, whether it be homecoming or obviously Hall of Fame weekend, if somebody from the softball program was being inducted. Unfortunately, this year got canned, but, we hope that once season comes back around that we'll be able to do that and, then have everybody come back and, be able to watch a softball game or two that weekend. So she really just kind of said it was, this was so much fun. We really need to try and keep this going. And even after Amanda left here,
I know.
Yeah, she's like,
Put a lot of effort. She put a lot of effort into it, and it's very
oh yeah.
appreciated because it's a lot of fun. And it's not only we're getting together. Like we usually get together that Friday night, just as like a dinner, a
Mhm.
social hour, and then the next day is the games and the alumni game and the
Oh
football
yeah.
game and things like that. And then they give you the opportunity, and they always have something like an apparel, either a hat or a shirt,
Mhm.
that you can purchase. And it's just nice to be able to explain that to your kids and what that means to you. Like, and for them to put so much effort in that and making sure that everybody was included that could make it is really nice and appreciated.
Well, they've always been big on history too. Not just from when they played, but trying to get everybody together with it. So because you're all still a part of the family of the program. So finally, is there anything else you would like to share with the viewers, whether it be advice or just another part of your journey that you would like people to know about?
I just think that if anybody's interested in playing at the next level, that, you've got to realize what you're getting into, that it is a full-time job. And it's hard work and dedication. And there's a lot of commitment that that's involved with that. But, what you take away from that experience is priceless. The memories that you make, the friends that you make, even if you don't talk to them that often, they're there with you a lifetime. And I would encourage you to take that next step. So that's the advice that I would give.
Okay. All right. Well, Carrie, thank you so much for joining me here on the MUSB Dugout. I really appreciate it. This was great.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Carrie Hinkle, one of the originals of the MUSB family, also one of just 5 players in Southern Conference history to be named All-Conference all 4 years. And hopefully one day we'll find her rightful place in the Marshall Athletics Hall of Fame. Again, Carrie, thank you.
Thank you.